Pull up a chair, friend, and pour yourself some coffee. The real stuff, not that fancy brew from those new shops. I need to tell you something that happened right here in Miami last September. You know how hot September gets down here, like the Lord turned on all the ovens at once. I've lived through 73 Florida summers, buried my Harold 5 years ago this Christmas, and thought I'd seen every kind of heartbreak there was. But what I witnessed between a billionaire who'd lost his little girl and a dog that wouldn't give up dying, well, it changed how I see the good Lord's plan for broken things. This isn't some made-up inspiration story from those magazines in the doctor's office. This really happened, and I was there for parts of it. Sometimes I still drive past that old house in Hialeah where it started, and I have to pull over and say a prayer. The smell coming from that house was like nothing Officer James Martinez had dealt with in his 5 years on the force. Sweet and wrong, like fruit left too long in the Florida sun. The kind of smell that stays in your uniform no matter how many times you wash it. Martinez stood outside the rundown house on West Flagler, you know the neighborhood, where the old Sears used to be before everything changed. The padlock on the basement door had rusted shut in the humidity. Sweat ran down his back as he worked the bolt cutters, his partner Davis calling for backup on the radio. They'd already found what was upstairs. Derek Patterson, 28 years old, dead for near about 3 weeks. The needle still in his arm, like he'd just sat down for a moment and forgotten to get back up. The house, his grandmother's place, God rest her soul, looked like those places you see on the evening news and wonder how folks let things get so bad. But there was something else, a sound from below the house. Not exactly crying, more like breathing that hurt too much to make real noise. The padlock finally gave way with a snap that echoed through the quiet morning. Martinez pulled open the door to darkness thick as molasses. His flashlight cut through it, showing concrete steps stained with things that didn't bear thinking about. That basement had no windows, no air, just darkness and stench. Ammonia and worse, like an outhouse that hadn't been cleaned since Roosevelt was president. Each step down made the smell stronger, until Martinez had to breathe through his mouth. His flashlight beam swept across the floor. Empty dog food bags licked clean, newspapers from 2019. And there in the corner, something that broke my heart when Martinez described it later at the church meeting. It had been a German Shepherd once. Beautiful breed. I had one myself back in '68 named Duke. But this poor creature weighed maybe 30 pounds, all bones and sores. Its back was twisted like a question mark asking why. The hip bones stuck out through skin covered in those terrible sores you get from lying in one place too long. I remembered them from Harold's last months. But those eyes, Lord have mercy, those eyes were still watching, still hoping. Mother of God, Martinez whispered, then caught himself. His mama raised him right, didn't take the Lord's name in vain. But what else could you say? The dog, Shadow, according to the collar hanging loose as a bracelet on a scarecrow, couldn't move his back legs at all. They were twisted under him like broken umbrella spokes. But when Martinez knelt down in that filth, ruining his uniform pants, Shadow's tail moved. Just once. A tiny thump against the concrete, like he was saying, I knew someone would come. Martinez wrapped that poor creature in his uniform jacket. Shadow weighed less than my grandson's bicycle, all ribs and rattling breath. But as they came up into the sunlight, first sunlight that dog had seen in who knows how long, Shadow's eyes stayed open, taking in everything. The sky, the trees, the world he'd forgotten existed. At the Second Chance shelter, you know it, next to where the old Five and Dime used to be, Sarah Mitchell took one look and stopped walking. Sarah had been an army nurse, seen men come back from Vietnam in pieces. But Shadow made her eyes fill up. Dear God in heaven, she breathed. Shadow looked at her, and his tail moved again. Still trying. After everything, still believing somebody might care. The story spread through the neighborhood faster than gossip at a church potluck. By noon, everyone was talking about it. By supper, the local news had picked it up. That's when Richard Coleman saw it, sitting in his lawyer's office, filing those divorce papers everyone knew were coming since his little Emily passed. And that's when this story really begins, friend. When a man with all the money in the world but nothing left to love met a dog with nothing but love left to give. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Richard Coleman's phone buzzed against the mahogany table in that fancy law office downtown. You know the building, the one that replaced the old Burdine's department store. His divorce lawyer, Mr. William Hartley, kept droning on about asset division, about Monica wanting the house in Aspen neither of them had visited since Emily got sick. The phone kept vibrating, sliding across that polished wood like it was trying to escape. Richard picked it up just to stop the noise. A video someone had shared. Seemed like everyone in Miami had already seen it. Officer Martinez carrying something wrapped in a blue uniform jacket. The caption read, "Found alive after owner died 3 weeks ago." Richard stood up so fast his chair scraped against the marble floor. That awful sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Where are you going?" Hartley pulled off those reading glasses that probably cost more than my Herald's monthly pension used to be. "We have depositions in an hour." But Richard was already walking out. His car, one of those foreign things that costs more than most folks' houses, was parked right in the handicapped spot. $300 ticket waiting on the windshield. He didn't even look at it. The shelter sat between Ramon's tire shop and that check-cashing place where folks go when the banks won't help them. Bars on the windows like half the buildings in that neighborhood. Richard's fancy car looked wrong as a tuxedo at a fish fry in that gravel parking lot. Inside, the barking hit like a wall. Concrete floors made every sound echo until you couldn't think straight. The fluorescent lights flickered the way they do when nobody's got money to fix them proper. Sarah Mitchell looked up from a stack of papers, the kind you sign when hope runs out. "We're not open for adoptions until noon, sir." "The dog from the video, the one Officer Martinez brought in." Sarah's face changed the way faces do when they realize you're serious about something nobody should be serious about. She stood, keys jangling from her belt like my old church key ring. "You don't want to see him, Mr. Coleman. We have younger dogs, healthier dogs." But Richard followed her anyway, past cages full of pit bulls and mutts with their tails wagging, hoping today might be their day. The barking faded as they went deeper into the building. The last kennel was quiet as a cemetery. Shadow lay on a folded blanket, an IV bag hanging from a coat hanger someone had bent into a makeshift stand. His eyes were fixed on a water bowl 6 feet away. 6 feet might as well have been 6 miles. His front legs scraped against a blanket, pulling his broken body forward an inch. The effort made his breathing whistle through his damaged throat. Richard's knees hit that concrete floor, right there in the bleach water and Lord knows what else. He pushed the bowl under Shadow's nose. The dog's eyes shifted to Richard's face. Brown eyes, like Emily used to have, like most of us had before age turned them cloudy. Shadow drank. His tail tried to move, more a twitch than a wag. When the bowl emptied, Shadow's tongue touched Richard's wrist. Just once, like a thank you in the only language he had left. Sarah stood in the doorway, shifting her weight the way folks do when they've got hard news. "Mr. Coleman, there's something you should know. The woman who called about him this morning? That was Derek's mother, Patricia Patterson. She's already asking about claiming him. Says she has ownership papers." "Derek's mother?" Richard's hand stilled on Shadow's head. The dog's breathing wheezed like my Herald's old oxygen machine, each breath a conscious decision to keep going. Sarah nodded, her face tight, the way faces get when trouble's coming. "Patricia Patterson. Called first thing this morning. Says she has the receipt from when Derek bought him as a puppy." Shadow's eyes moved between them, watching like he understood every word. His front paw scraped forward, barely pressing against Richard's knee, lighter than a butterfly landing on your Sunday dress. What kind of mother lets this happen? Richard stood, his knees cracking from the concrete.
Brown stains marked those expensive trousers where he'd been kneeling, the kind who's already talking about compensation. Sarah's mouth twisted like she'd tasted something bitter. Emotional damages, she says.
Claims the dog is all she has left of her son. Richard looked down at Shadow. Those ribs rose and fell like he was counting each breath, saving them up like coins in a coffee can. Get me your veterinarian. Dr. Charlotte Kim pulled up 20 minutes later in a Honda with more miles on it than my old station wagon ever had. She moved quick and sure, the way people do when they've learned not to waste motion. Gray hair pulled back, practical, scrubs with old stains that wouldn't wash out no matter how much bleach you used. She knelt beside Shadow without saying hello, her fingers working down his spine like she was reading Braille. Shadow's back legs didn't so much as twitch. She lifted each paw, bent each joint. Nothing below the middle of his back responded at all. She pulled out one of those little flashlights doctors keep in their pocket, checked his eyes, then listened to his heart with a stethoscope older than some of the volunteers. "How bad?" Richard asked. Dr. Kim pulled out one of those tablet things, like a TV you can carry around, and showed him pictures that looked like photo negatives from the old days. The spine in those pictures looked like a string of pearls where someone had stepped on half of them. Compression fractures at L3 and L4, probably from kicks or beatings with something metal, a pipe, maybe a chain. Her finger traced the damage on the screen. The nerves are severed, or close to it. See this dark area? That's where the spinal cord essentially ends. Meaning? He'll never walk again. The back legs are gone for good. The front legs have maybe 30% function on a good day. Bladder and bowel control are gone. Someone will need to express them manually 4 times a day. The pressure sores will be constant. Infections. Pain that won't quit. She looked up at Richard the way the doctors used to look at me when Harold was dying. Most folks would choose to let him go peaceful. I'm not most folks. Dr. Kim studied him, and I could see her taking his measure like my mother used to size up fabric at Woolworth's. "Mr. Coleman, this isn't about money. This is about quality of life. Shadow needs round-the-clock care, custom wheelchairs that'll need adjusting as his muscles waste away more, physical therapy that might not show any improvement at all. He could live 2 years or 2 months. Every single day will be hard." Shadow's breathing changed, got faster. His eyes locked on the door. Patricia Patterson walked in like she owned the place, though I'd bet my last dollar she'd never owned much of anything that wasn't bought with someone else's misery. 52 years old, trying to look 35, with that black hair dye that fools nobody and roots showing gray as dishwater. Knock-off designer purse from the flea market. Cologne thick enough to choke you, trying to cover the smell of cigarettes and something else. That sour smell folks get when they're lying. Her lawyer, young fellow in a suit that didn't fit right, like he'd borrowed it from someone taller, carried a folder thick with papers. "That's my dog." She didn't look at Shadow, not once. Her eyes stayed on Richard like she was counting the money in his wallet. She pulled out a crumpled paper. Puppy Mill Paradise, that awful place out by the airport that got shut down 2 years back. $400 for one German Shepherd puppy, name listed as King. Shadow's whole body went rigid as a board. Urine leaked onto the blanket, and the smell mixed with the disinfectant and fear. His front legs scrambled, trying to pull his broken body backward, away from her voice. The first real sound he'd made came out, not quite a whimper, more like air being squeezed from a punctured tire. "See? He knows me." Patricia stepped closer. The heart monitor, one of those old units Sarah bought at a medical supply discount place, started beeping faster. The numbers climbing like a thermometer in August. 120, 130, 140. Richard moved between them, and I swear the temperature in that room dropped 10 degrees. He's terrified. "He's my property." Her voice cracked on the word property, putting on a show of grief,
but her eyes stayed dry and calculating as a cash register.
My son is dead. That dog is all I have left of him. Plus the emotional distress of seeing him like this. My lawyer says, your son locked him in a basement for 2 years. You can't prove that. The police can. They have photos. The basement, the chain marks, the beatings. Patricia's lawyer opened his folder with a flourish like those magicians at the county fair. Ms. Patterson is prepared to file for immediate return of her property, unless Mr. Coleman would prefer to settle this matter financially. Shadow's breathing turned to short little pants, like he couldn't get enough air. His eyes rolled back, showing white. Dr. Kim grabbed her stethoscope, checked his heart. He's going into shock. Everyone out except medical staff. Richard didn't move. How much? Patricia smiled, and I saw that gold crown in front that meant she'd had money once, before whatever choices led her here. 50,000. For my grief. You haven't looked at him once. Why would I look at that thing? Her voice dropped, ugly as truth. Derek ruined him, just like he ruined everything else. But that broken thing is worth money now, isn't it? Some rich fool wants to play savior. Sarah's hand touched Richard's arm, gentle as a church lady's warning. The heart monitor kept climbing. 150, 155. The beeping like a countdown to something terrible. I'll give you 100,000. Richard pulled out one of those phones everyone carries now. Right now, wire transfer. But you sign him over and never come near him again. Patricia's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. 200,000. Shadow's breathing stopped, just for a second. Then started again, ragged as torn fabric. Done. Richard's fingers moved across his phone screen faster than I can type a grocery list. Account number. The lawyer produced papers from nowhere, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Patricia signed without reading, her fingers shaking with excitement, not grief. The money must have hit her account quick, because she checked her phone 3 times in 10 seconds. Pleasure doing business. She turned to leave, stopped at the door, and said something that made my blood run cold as January. You know Derek got him for me originally? For my birthday? Cutest puppy you ever saw. Used to sleep on my bed. Then Derek decided he loved that dog more than me. Locked him away where nobody else could have him, just like his father used to do with things he loved. She left, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. Shadow's body went limp as a dish rag, the heart monitor slowly dropping back toward normal. Dr. Kim checked his vitals again. We need to move him to my clinic, better equipment there. No. Sarah's voice was strange, tight like a guitar string about to snap. She stared at her phone screen like she'd seen a ghost. She turned the phone toward Richard. A news alert, already spreading through Miami like wildfire after a dry spell. Billionaire Richard Coleman pays $200,000 for dying dog while homeless veterans sleep on streets. Below it, a photo someone had taken through the shelter window. Richard kneeling beside Shadow. That fancy car visible in the parking lot. The headline already had 12,000 shares. Monica's lawyer would see it within the hour. And Monica? Well, she'd see it as more proof that Richard had lost his mind since Emily died. Richard's phone vibrated against his palm like an angry wasp. Monica's lawyer first, then Monica herself, then 3 partners from his firm downtown, the one in that glass tower that went up where the old Everglades Hotel used to be. Then Monica again. He pressed that little button to turn it off completely, something I still can't figure out how to do on mine. Shadow lay still on Dr. Kim's exam table, breathing shallow while she worked that MRI machine. Thing sounded like a washing machine with a brick in it, clicking and groaning like it might give up any minute. Richard stood behind the lead glass, same kind they used to use at the dentist's when X-rays were new and scary, watching Shadow through the window. These images, Dr. Kim's finger traced the screen like she was reading a map of heartbreak. See where the spine curves here? That's from repeated trauma over time. But this break at L3? That's newer. Maybe 6 months old. The healing pattern shows he couldn't move his back legs since then. 6 months. That poor creature had dragged himself around that basement for 6 months with a broken spine. Like those boys who came back from Korea, pulling themselves on boards with wheels because the VA didn't have enough wheelchairs. The front legs still have some nerve conduction, maybe 30% now, possibly 40% with therapy. She pulled up another image that looked like a storm cloud on radar. The back legs, though, nothing. The signals can't get through, like a phone line that's been cut clean through. Richard's reflection in the glass looked hollow as a scarecrow. His face had that gray color folks get when they forget to eat, forget to sleep, forget everything except the thing that's eating them alive. There's more. Dr. Kim zoomed in on the skull x-rays, pointing to lines like cracks in old china. Multiple fractures to the jaw, healed badly. The vocal cords show scarring from severe dehydration and trauma. He might make sounds, but he'll never bark properly again. Shadow's paw twitched in his sleep, his legs moving like dogs do when they dream of running. Running in the only place he still could. What's the longest a dog has lived with this level of paralysis? With proper care? Maybe 3 years? But Mr. Coleman... She turned to face him proper, the way doctors do when they're about to say something you don't want to hear. That's 3 years of catheters, manual bowel expression 4 times a day, pressure sores that won't heal right, infections that keep coming back. Most dogs just give up, stop eating, stop trying. Richard pressed his palm against the glass, left a handprint like a child at a window. He crawled toward water when he couldn't move. He's not the giving up type. The door burst open hard enough to bang against the wall. Monica stood there, her attorney, William Hartley, behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Monica's face was flushed red as a sunburn, her usually perfect makeup smeared under one eye, like she'd been crying or rubbing it in fury. $200,000? For a dog? Her voice hit that pitch I remembered from my own arguments with Harold, back when we were young and thought every fight might be the last one. Emily's college fund had $200,000. The words came out of Richard flat as week-old soda. Monica's hand cracked across his face. The sound echoed in that small room like a firecracker. Dr. Kim stepped between them, quick as a referee. This is a medical facility. Take this outside. I'm filing an emergency injunction. Hartley pulled out papers from his briefcase, the expensive kind, made from some animal I can't pronounce, claiming mental incompetence. No person in their right mind pays that kind of money for a paralyzed animal. Richard touched his cheek where the red was already showing. I paid $8 million for a yacht I've used twice. That's different. How? Monica's voice dropped to a whisper, the kind that's worse than yelling. Because you're trying to replace her, our daughter, with that thing in there. Shadow stirred on the table, his eyes opening unfocused from the drugs they'd given him. Through the glass, his eyes found Richard. His tail moved, just the tip, like a paintbrush making the smallest stroke. See? Monica's fingers shook as she pointed. You're looking at him the way you used to look at Emily. I never looked at Emily. Richard's voice was quiet as church. I was always at work. The observation room went silent, except for the MRI's cooling fans humming like an old refrigerator. Monica's face crumpled like tissue paper, then hardened again like it did at Emily's funeral when she had to be strong for everyone else. The court will hear about this tomorrow. Every penny you spend on that animal is documented evidence of your deteriorating mental state. She turned to leave, stopped without looking back. Emily would be disgusted, wasting money on a lost cause while real children suffer. They left, their footsteps echoing down the hall. Dr. Kim waited until she couldn't hear them anymore. The wheelchair specialist can come tomorrow. Custom fitting. The frame alone will cost $12,000. Do it. Shadow was awake now, eyes tracking their movements like he was trying to understand what all the fuss was about. Dr. Kim ran her hand along his spine, gentle as a mother.
He didn't flinch until she reached the break point. Below that, nothing. No response at all. Like that part of him was already gone. I'll keep him overnight for observation. You should go home, Mr. Coleman. Get some rest. Richard pulled a metal chair next to Shadow's kennel, the legs scraping against the floor like fingernails on slate. I'll stay. He's stable. There's nothing you can do tonight. Richard's hand found Shadow's head, that spot between the ears where the fur was softest. Shadow's eyes closed, opened, closed again. Trusting. Like Emily used to do when he'd check on her at night, pretending to be asleep but peeking to make sure he was really there. When Emily was in the hospital, I left every night. Board meetings, contracts, told myself the nurses knew better, the doctors had it handled. Told myself I'd be more useful making money for her treatment than sitting beside her bed doing nothing. His fingers traced the scars on Shadow's skull, old wounds healed wrong. She died at 3:47 in the morning, alone. The nurse said she called for me at the end, said "Daddy" 3 times before she went quiet. Dr. Kim turned off the overhead light, left only the exam light on like a night light. I'll be in my office if you need anything. Shadow's breathing settled into a rhythm like waves on a calm day. His front paw moved, found Richard's wrist, rested there.
The weight of it no more than a sparrow landing on a fence. The clinic's back door opened. Footsteps that didn't sound like Dr. Kim, too heavy, but with an odd rhythm. A man's voice. "We're closed. I'm Marcus Washington. Sarah Mitchell from the shelter called me. Said you had a special case." Richard looked up. A black fellow, maybe early 30s, sat in a wheelchair in the doorway. Not a regular wheelchair like they give you at the hospital, but something custom-built. Titanium frame with shock absorbers, like a fancy car. "You're the physical therapist?" Marcus rolled closer. His hands were calloused thick as a farmer's, arms muscled like he'd been rowing boats his whole life. "Former NFL, Baltimore Ravens. Broke my C5 and C6 vertebrae in a tackle. During a game everyone forgot except me. Doctors said I'd never move my arms again. Took me 2 years to prove them wrong." He looked at Shadow's x-rays still glowing on the monitor, studied them like he was reading a playbook. His fingers traced the breakpoints. Dogs are different from humans. They don't understand they're supposed to give up. Marcus moved to Shadow's kennel, opened it smooth as silk. His hands found Shadow's front legs, testing each joint's range of motion, gentle as handling eggs. Shadow watched him, alert now despite the late hour. There's something here, in the front legs. More than 30% function. Maybe more than 40 with the right approach. Monica's lawyer says I'm insane. Spending this kind of money on a dog who'll never walk. Marcus's laugh was bitter as black coffee. They said that about my medical bills too. $2 million to get me from dead below the chest to this wheelchair. My ex-wife's lawyer used it in our divorce. Said I was selfishly bankrupting our future for a pipe dream. His hands kept working Shadow's joints, slow and careful. Shadow's tail tip moved faster, like a metronome picking up speed. "Can you help him?" "I can try. But Mr. Coleman, I need you to understand something." Marcus's face was serious as a preacher's. The progress won't look like progress. For weeks, maybe months, it'll look like torture. He'll vomit, he'll cry, he'll hate me, you'll hate me. Monica's lawyer will probably film it as evidence of abuse. Shadow's front paw reached toward Marcus, stretched as far as the partial paralysis allowed, maybe 3 inches. Marcus met him halfway, let Shadow's paw rest on his palm. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow, after the wheelchair fitting. Assuming you're not in psychiatric hold by then." Richard's phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but the area code was 617. Boston, his mother's nursing home up in Massachusetts.
"Mr. Coleman, this is Nancy from Sunrise Senior Care. Your mother had another fall. She's asking for you. She keeps saying something about Emily, that Emily is there with her."
The courtroom smelled like old paper and that pine cleaner they used to use at the Methodist church, the kind that never quite covered the smell of too many bodies in too small a space. Richard sat in the witness chair, the wood hard against his back. Shadow's medical files were stacked on the table before him, thick as a phone book from the old days when they still delivered them. Monica's lawyer, Hartley, paced in front of Judge Martha Harrison like a rooster in a henhouse. The judge must have been pushing 70, with those eyes that had seen every kind of human foolishness since Nixon was president. Your Honor, in the past 72 hours, Mr. Coleman has spent $200,000 purchasing a paralyzed dog, $12,000 on a custom wheelchair that hasn't even arrived yet, and committed to monthly medical expenses exceeding $15,000. Hartley lifted a bank statement like it was evidence of a crime. This for an animal that cannot walk, cannot control basic bodily functions, and according to 3 veterinary experts, will never recover. Judge Harrison studied Richard over her reading glasses, the kind on a chain that all judges seemed to wear. Mr. Coleman, can you explain these expenses? Richard's phone vibrated in his pocket. The nursing home again. 4th call this morning. His mother had been asking for Emily all night, saying Emily was waiting for her. He let it go to whatever that voicemail thing was. Your Honor, I have money. More than I could spend in 10 lifetimes if I tried. If I choose to spend it on medical care for an animal, that's my right. Not if you're mentally incompetent. Hartley pulled up something on his laptop computer, those flat things that replace typewriters, and suddenly Richard's picture appeared on the courtroom screen. Him kneeling beside Shadow at the shelter, his $1,000 pants soaking up urine and bleach water like a sponge. This is not normal behavior. Monica sat in the gallery wearing the black dress from Emily's funeral. I recognized it because I'd been there, seen her standing straight as a soldier while her world fell apart. The pearl necklace Richard gave her for their 10th anniversary caught the light from the high windows. Mr. Coleman, Judge Harrison leaned forward. I'm ordering a psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Jennifer Reeves will assess you this afternoon. Until then, your assets are temporarily frozen, except for basic living expenses. What about Shadow's medical care? That's not a basic living expense. Richard stood up so fast the chair rocked. He needs physical therapy. Today. If we wait, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. The courtroom door opened like the Lord himself was making an entrance. Marcus Washington rolled in, and behind him, mercy, it took my breath away. Shadow, in his new wheelchair. The contraption was all titanium and leather straps, holding up Shadow's back end while his front paws barely touched the ground. But he was moving, pulling himself forward with whatever strength those front legs had left. Your Honor, I'm Marcus Washington, licensed physical therapist. I need 5 minutes of your time. This is highly irregular. Please, ma'am. Something in his voice made the judge nod. Marcus positioned Shadow right in front of the bench. The dog's breathing was labored, like he'd run a marathon, ribs showing with each inhale. Shadow's eyes found Richard across the courtroom. His tail moved against the wheelchair's support. 3 taps. Like Morse code. Like Harold used to tap on my hand when he couldn't speak anymore at the end. This dog has 65% nerve damage. By every medical standard, he should be dead. Marcus placed a tennis ball 3 feet from Shadow. Might as well have been 3 miles. Watch this. Shadow's eyes locked on that ball like it was the only thing in the world. His front right paw extended, scraped against the floor. The wheelchair wheels squeaked as his body shifted forward an inch. Another paw movement. Another inch. The courtroom was quiet as a funeral parlor. Just Shadow's ragged breathing and those wheels turning slower than molasses in January. 43 seconds it took him to cover those 3 feet. When his nose finally touched that yellow ball, he looked up at the judge like a child who'd just learned to write their name. He's trying, Marcus said. Harder than any patient I've ever had, human or animal. Judge Harrison took off her glasses, rubbed her eyes the way folks do when they're trying not to cry. Mr. Washington, it's inspiring, but I was told I'd never move my arms again. $2 million in medical bills. 3 years of therapy that looked like torture. Everyone said my wife was crazy for not pulling the plug. Marcus lifted his hands, flexed those fingers that weren't supposed to work. Now I train athletes who can walk. Sometimes the impossible just takes longer. Monica stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. This is manipulation. Using a sick animal to... Shadow's body went rigid as a board left in the rain. His eyes rolled back, white as eggs. Pink foam appeared at his mouth. He'd bitten his tongue. The seizure hit him like lightning, his whole body convulsing despite the wheelchair's straps. Marcus dropped from his wheelchair faster than you'd think possible, his dead legs dragging as his arms caught Shadow before he could fall. Clear his airway, now! Richard vaulted over the defendant's table like he was 20 again, like the businessman vanished and left only a father who knew what emergency looked like. His hands turned Shadow's head to the side, let the bloody foam drain out instead of choking him. How long? Dr. Kim had warned about stress seizures, the damaged nervous system misfiring like bad wiring in an old house. 30 seconds. Marcus held Shadow's thrashing body still as he could. 40. 50. 60. At 90 seconds, Shadow went limp as a dish rag. His breathing stopped completely. Richard's hands moved without thinking. Chest compressions on that thin rib cage, feeling bones bend under his palms. 1, 2, 3. Then breathing into those damaged lungs, tasting blood and medicine and desperation. Come on. Richard's voice cracked like a teenager's. You don't give up. You crawled to water. You survived that basement. Don't you quit on me now. The courtroom security guard was calling for paramedics. Monica had moved closer. When had that happened? Her hand touched Richard's shoulder, gentle as a blessing. Shadow gasped. Air rattled through his throat like a broken harmonica. His eyes opened, unfocused, confused. His front paw moved, searching, finding Richard's hand and holding on with what little strength he had. Judge Harrison stood up, her black robes rustling. Court is recessed. Mr. Coleman, the psychiatric evaluation is postponed pending medical emergency. But this doesn't change the fundamental question here. Richard carried Shadow out like a baby, Marcus rolling beside them. Monica followed. I saw it all because I'd come to pay a parking ticket and stayed when I recognized Richard from the news. Sometimes the Lord puts you where you need to be. In the parking lot, Monica stopped them. The wind was picking up the way it does before an afternoon storm, pulling her hair across her face. Richard. He turned, Shadow's weight nothing in his arms. She stood there in Emily's funeral dress, looking older than her 45 years, looking like every mother who'd lost a child and couldn't figure out how the world kept spinning. Emily would have done the same thing. The stupid, expensive, hopeless thing. Her voice broke like ice in warm water. She got that from you. She walked away before he could answer, her heels clicking on the asphalt like a countdown. Dr. Kim met them at the clinic, already preparing IVs and medications. Shadow's vitals jumped around like a broken speedometer, heart rate going from 60 to 140 and back. Temperature spiking, then dropping like Florida weather in hurricane season. The stress triggered something. His system was barely holding together as it was. Shadow lay on his side, eyes open but not really seeing. His front paw still gripped Richard's finger like a baby holds her thumb. Not strong, but determined. We need to stop the therapy, Dr. Kim said. It's too much. No. Marcus wheeled closer. That's when they die, when they stop trying. The body follows where the mind gives up. I've seen it 100 times. Shadow's grip tightened, just barely, like a pulse. The clinic door opened gentle as church. A woman in hospital scrubs walked in carrying a little boy, maybe 6 years old. The child's legs hung limp as shadows, his spine curved and held straight by one of those plastic braces that look like medieval torture. I'm sorry, we're not taking emergencies, Dr. Kim started. I'm not here for treatment. The woman set the boy in a regular wheelchair, his legs arranging themselves like they had no bones. "I'm Jennifer Reeves, the court-appointed psychiatrist." She pulled out a notebook, the kind with the spiral wire that always catches on everything. "I was supposed to evaluate you this afternoon, Mr. Coleman, but I wanted to see the dog first, to understand what this is really about." Her son stared at Shadow with eyes big as saucers. "Mama, he's like me." "No, honey, he's a dog. His legs don't work, like mine." Shadow's head turned toward the boy. The first directed movement he'd made since the seizure. His tail moved against the exam table, faster than before. His front paw released Richard's finger, reached toward the child. "Can I pet him?" The boy's eyes were huge with hope. Richard looked at Dr. Kim. She shrugged, the way doctors do when they're out of medical answers. "He's stable for now." Jennifer carried her son over. The boy's hand touched Shadow's head, with the gentleness children save for broken things. Shadow's tongue, dry and rough as sandpaper, licked those small fingers. "He's saying hello." The boy laughed, and his mother's face changed like the sun coming out after a storm. First time she'd heard that sound in months, from the way her eyes filled up. "Mr. Coleman," Jennifer's voice went professional again. "Tell me why you're doing this." Richard watched Shadow's tail wag as the boy petted him. "My daughter died alone at 3:47 in the morning while I was in a meeting about a shopping center that's already been torn down. This dog was dying alone in a basement while the world went on above him. Someone had to choose differently. That's projection, attempting to fix a past trauma through, I know what it is." Richard's hand found Shadow's spine, traced the broken parts that would never heal. But knowing what something is doesn't make it wrong. Jennifer wrote in her notebook, "The court is concerned about your financial judgment. I have $1.7 billion. If I spend $15,000 a month on Shadow for 3 years, that's $500,000. I lose more than that in market fluctuations while I'm sleeping. It's not about the math." "Then what's it about?" She watched her son whisper secrets to Shadow, the dog's eyes locked on the child's face like he was memorizing every word. "It's about whether a reasonable person would make these choices. Reasonable people put their mothers in nursing homes and visit on Christmas and Easter. Reasonable people work through their daughter's cancer treatment instead of holding her hand. Reasonable people don't end up alone in 8-bedroom houses talking to photographs of dead children." Richard's voice stayed flat as day-old beer. "I'm done being reasonable." Shadow made a sound, not quite a bark. His damaged vocal cords could only manage a whisper of what a bark should be, but directed at the boy, deliberate as a handshake. "He talked to me." The boy's face lit up like Christmas morning. Jennifer closed her notebook. "Mr. Coleman, I need to ask you some standard questions. Have you had thoughts of self-harm?" "No." "Have you experienced hallucinations?" "No." "Do you believe this dog is your daughter reincarnated?" "No. He's a dog. A broken dog who didn't give up. That's all." Shadow's paw moved toward the boy's hand. They touched, gentle as butterfly wings. "Mom, can we get a dog?" "Timothy, we've discussed this. With your condition..." "Shadow has my condition. He's still a dog." Jennifer's professional mask slipped, and I saw underneath exhaustion, worry, the weight single mothers carry when their children need more than they can give. Probably making $80,000 a year evaluating rich folks' sanity, while her own life made no sense at all. "How much does the therapy cost?" she asked Marcus. $300 per session. 5 sessions a week would be ideal." She did the math in her head. Her shoulders dropped like someone had added stones to her pockets. Richard pulled out his phone. "What's your son's full name?" "Why?" "For the fund." "What fund?" "The one I'm creating right now, Shadow's Fund, for families who need help with mobility equipment and therapy." His fingers moved across the screen faster than my grandchildren text. "Initial endowment of $10 million. Jennifer's notebook hit the floor. "You can't bribe a court-appointed psychiatrist." "I'm not. I'm bribing a mother. Different thing entirely."
Shadow's breathing grew heavy. Dr. Kim checked his temperature with one of those instant thermometers. 101.5. He needs rest. Timothy didn't want to leave. His arms wrapped around his mother's neck as she carried him, but he kept looking back at Shadow, waving goodbye.
At the door, Shadow's tail managed 3 taps against the table. Jennifer turned back. "Mr. Coleman, I have to file my report tomorrow." "I know." "The court wants clear answers." "There aren't any. Never have been." She looked at Shadow, then at her son pointing back at the clinic from the parking lot. "No, there never are." The clock on the wall showed midnight, the old-fashioned kind with hands, not those digital things I can't read without my glasses. Richard sat beside Shadow's kennel. The dog slept, legs twitching in dreams of running in fields he'd never see except behind closed eyes. Marcus had stayed late, working Shadow's legs while he slept. Tiny improvements. The right paw had 10% more extension than yesterday. The left showed muscle response that hadn't been there before. "He's fighting," Marcus said before he left. "Harder than any human patient I've ever had." Richard's phone showed 17 missed calls from Boston. His mother was asking for Emily constantly now. The nursing home doctor said she had perhaps hours, maybe less. Shadow's eyes opened. Found Richard immediately, like he'd been checking to make sure he hadn't been abandoned again. His tail moved. Their signal. "I have to go to Boston. My mother is dying." Shadow's paw stretched toward him. Richard met it halfway. "But I'm not leaving you. Not like I left Emily." His phone rang. Dr. Kim, though she'd gone home hours ago. "Mr. Coleman, I just got a call from Animal Control. Patricia Patterson is claiming you coerced her into signing Shadow over. She's got a new lawyer filing an emergency petition. Says she was grieving and you took advantage. She has $200,000. She wants the dog back." "Or another 200,000. Shadow's grip on Richard's finger tightened. "Mr. Coleman, there's something else. The news crews are outside. Someone leaked the courtroom video. Shadow having a seizure. You doing CPR. It's everywhere. The headline is 'Billionaire plays God with dying dog.'" Through the clinic window, Richard could see the van lights. Channel 7, Channel 10, even CNN had sent someone. His phone buzzed. Text from his mother's nurse. "She's calling for Emily. Please come." Shadow's eyes watched him, waiting, always waiting for someone to come back. Richard's phone rang again. Unknown number. "Mr. Coleman, this is Patricia Patterson. We need to talk about my dog. I've been thinking about Derek, about what he would have wanted, and I've decided—" The line went dead. Shadow's monitor started beeping fast as a woodpecker. His temperature had spiked to 104. Dr. Kim burst through the door, still in her pajamas with curlers in her hair. "We have a problem. Shadow's blood work just came back from the lab. He's in kidney failure." Dr. Kim's fingers moved across Shadow's belly, pressing, feeling for fluid buildup. The dog's stomach was swollen tight as a tick, that awful ammonia smell coming off his breath that meant his kidneys weren't filtering poison from his blood anymore. Creatinine is 8.2, should be under 1.5. She pulled up the lab results on her tablet thing, numbers glowing green against black. BUN is 140, normal is under 25. His body's drowning in its own waste. Richard's hand stayed on Shadow's head. The dog's eyes tracked movement but couldn't quite focus, pupils going big, then small, then big again, like they couldn't decide what to do. "Dialysis? We don't have veterinary dialysis equipment. Miami Veterinary Hospital does, but—" Dr. Kim's voice dropped, the way voices do when hope runs out. "Mr. Coleman, his spine was bad enough. Now his kidneys. Systems are shutting down one by one, like lights going out in an empty house." Shadow's front paw scraped against the exam table, still trying to move toward Richard. Always trying. His damaged throat let out a rasp of air that might have been meant as a bark. The clinic door slammed open, hard enough to rattle the windows. Patricia Patterson stood there,
with a different lawyer this time, older fellow, in a suit that cost more than most folks' cars. Behind them, a news crew pushed in with cameras and those microphone things on sticks. "That's my dog." Patricia's voice pitched high for the cameras, playing grieving mother like she'd rehearsed it. "This man manipulated me in my moment of grief, forced me to sign papers I didn't understand." The lawyer, Harrison Burke, according to his fancy business card, stepped forward with authority of money and connections.
"We have a court order. Temporary custody returning to Ms. Patterson pending investigation of coercion." He handed Dr. Kim the papers. Her face went pale as fresh paint reading them. Shadow's body tensed up like he'd been electrocuted. His nose turned toward Patricia, even though his eyes couldn't focus. The heart monitor started climbing like a thermometer in August. 90, 100, 110, still climbing. "Get her out." Richard stood between them like a wall. "He's terrified of her." "Terrified?" Patricia moved closer, and I could smell that cologne trying to cover cigarette smoke and something else, that sour smell of someone rotting from the inside. "I never laid a hand on him. That was all Derek. My poor son, destroyed by drugs." Her voice cracked on cue, tears appearing right when the camera zoomed in. Shadow's bladder let go. Urine mixed with blood pooled on the exam table, the smell sharp and wrong. His front legs scrambled against the metal, trying to drag his broken body away from her voice. "See how he responds to his real owner?" Burke addressed the camera like a preacher at revival. "This dog knows who he belongs to." Dr. Kim stepped forward, putting herself between Shadow and the cameras. "He's in kidney failure. Moving him will kill him." "How convenient." Burke pulled out his phone, showed a news article to the camera. "Billionaire's dog mysteriously ill after court order." "Mr. Coleman, what did you give this animal?" Richard's phone buzzed. Text from Boston. "Your mother stopped breathing. On ventilator. Please come now." Then the door opened quiet as church, and Monica walked in. She wore jeans and one of Richard's old University of Miami sweatshirts. I recognized it from when they were young and still held hands in public. Her face looked different without the makeup and anger. Real, tired, human. Dear God. She saw Shadow, the pool of bloody urine, his legs trying to crawl away from Patricia, the way his ribs showed through his skin with each labored breath. "Mrs. Coleman, perfect timing." Burke's eyes lit up like he'd won the lottery. "Your testimony about your ex-husband's mental state." "Shut up!" Monica moved to Shadow. Her hand hesitated over his head, then touched him, gentle as blessing a baby. Shadow's eyes found hers. His tail moved once, just barely. "This is what Emily's dog looked like. At the end." Her voice was flat as water. "Buddy, golden retriever. The cancer spread to his kidneys. Same smell. Same look in his eyes when he knew it was ending." Patricia pushed past the camera crew, her mask slipping. "I want my dog back. My son's dog. The only thing I have left of Derek." "Your son?" Monica turned, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Your son locked this animal in a basement, beat him with pipes, broke his spine, starved him nearly to death. Derek was sick. Derek was an abuser. Learned it from somewhere, didn't he?" Monica pulled out her phone, the new kind that does everything but make coffee. "I hired a private investigator. You want to know what he found, Patricia? Should I play the recordings for the camera?" Patricia's face changed, like someone had turned off a light. "You introduced Derek to his dealer. You collected his disability checks while he was high. You knew Shadow was in that basement. You brought food once a month, just enough to keep him barely alive so the smell wouldn't alert neighbors." Burke grabbed Patricia's arm. "We need to discuss this outside." "Play the recordings," Patricia said, but her voice had gone small. "They're probably fake." Monica touched her phone screen. Patricia's voice filled the room, tinny through the speaker but clear as day. Yeah, Derek's good for another month. Keep him supplied. I'll get his check on the 3rd. That dog? Still alive, last I checked. Basement stinks, but Derek won't let me clean it. The news crew turned their cameras on Patricia. She backed toward the door, stumbling over her own feet. That's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. Monica's voice stayed level as a carpenter's rule. You fed your son's addiction because it was profitable. You let Shadow suffer because it was convenient. You're here now because you smell money like a vulture smells death. Patricia ran. Actually ran, those knockoff heels clicking against the floor like typewriter keys. Burke followed, already on his phone, probably calling damage control. The news crew looked at each other, then at Shadow, then quietly backed out of the room. The door closed soft as a whisper. Shadow's breathing grew more labored. Dr. Kim checked his temperature, 105 and climbing. We need to get him to Miami Veterinary now. They have dialysis. Will he survive the drive? Maybe 20% chance. Without it, 0. Richard lifted Shadow. The dog weighed nothing, like holding a bag of bones wrapped in fur and hope. Shadow's head rested against Richard's chest. His tail moved against Richard's arm. Tap, tap. Their signal. Monica opened the back door of Richard's SUV, the big one that costs more than most people's houses. I'll drive. You? You hold him. I'll drive. The drive to Miami Veterinary should have taken 30 minutes. Monica made it in 18, running red lights like they were suggestions, taking corners like she was 25 again and nothing could touch them. Shadow's breathing got shallower with each mile. Richard felt the dog's heart against his palm, irregular, skipping beats like a broken record player. Shadow's eyes stayed open, watching Richard's face with trust that broke what was left of Richard's heart. Remember when Emily was born? Monica took another corner fast enough to make the tires squeal. She wasn't breathing. 40 seconds that felt like 40 years. You did CPR on something the size of a football while I screamed. She lived. For 8 years. Monica's hands tightened on the wheel until her knuckles went white. 8 good years. More than some people get in a lifetime. Shadow made a sound. Not quite a whimper, not quite a bark. His front paw pressed against Richard's chest, right over his heart. Still trying to comfort when he was the one dying. Miami Veterinary Hospital's emergency entrance was packed with news vans. Someone had leaked their destination. Dr. Patricia Wells, the head veterinarian, woman about my age who'd probably seen everything, met them with a gurney. Straight to dialysis. We've been preparing. The dialysis room looked like a human hospital. Machines with tubes and filters, screens showing numbers that meant life or death. They sedated Shadow, put needles in his neck where the big blood vessels were. Dark blood flowed out one tube, came back lighter through another. 3 hours minimum. Dr. Wells studied the monitors like reading tea leaves. His blood pressure is dropping. We're pushing fluids and medications to keep his heart going. Richard's phone showed 32 missed calls from Boston. A text from the nursing home director. Your mother is asking for you. She says Emily is waiting but won't leave without saying goodbye to you. Monica saw the screen. Go. I'm not leaving him. Richard, your mother is dying. So is Shadow. Monica sat in one of those plastic chairs that were designed by someone who'd never had to sit in one for hours. They watched Shadow's blood cycle through the machine. Dark out, lighter in. The monitors beeped steady as a metronome. I hated you for working during Emily's treatment. Monica's voice was quiet as snowfall. Every meeting you went to, every call you took while she was getting chemo. But you know what? I worked too. Different way. I worked at being strong, at being positive, at keeping everything normal for her. Neither of us just sat with her in the mess. Shadow's leg twitched. His damaged vocal cords produced a small sound, probably from the sedation dreams. Richard's phone rang. Judge Harrison. Mr. Coleman, I've reviewed the emergency petition. Given the evidence Mrs. Coleman provided about Patricia Patterson's involvement in her son's addiction and animal abuse, I'm reversing the custody order. Shadow remains yours. Thank you. There's more. Dr. Reeves submitted her psychiatric evaluation early. She found no evidence of mental incompetence. Your financial decisions, while unusual, are within your rights as long as you can afford them. The judge paused, and I could hear papers shuffling. Mr. Coleman, I had a dog once. Lucky. Basset hound. Stupidest looking thing you ever saw. Got cancer when he was 12. I spent $20,000 trying to save him. This was 1987, mind you. That was real money. My husband said I was crazy. Lucky died anyway. But those last 3 months, he knew he was loved. Every minute. That matters. She hung up. Shadow's blood pressure dropped to 70/40. Alarms started going off like fire drills. He's going into shock. Dr. Wells rushed in, adjusting medications, adding another IV line. The dialysis stress on top of everything else. Shadow's breathing turned to gasps. His front paw moved, searching. Richard caught it. I'm here. Monica's hand covered both of theirs. We're here. Shadow's eyes opened, unfocused but aware, looking for something. Someone. His tail moved against the table, once, twice. On the third tap, it stopped. He's coding. Dr. Wells grabbed the crash cart. Richard's phone rang. Boston.
Mr. Coleman, your mother just passed. But before she did, she said Emily says the dog is important, that you need to save the dog.
The heart monitor showed a flat line. Dr. Wells charged the paddles. Clear. Shadow's body jumped. Nothing. Again. Clear. Another jump. A single beep. Then another. Then steady rhythm. Shadow's eyes opened, found Richard. His damaged voice made its broken sound. His front paw moved. Then Patricia Patterson walked back in with 3 police officers. I've filed criminal charges, theft by coercion. These officers have a warrant for Mr. Coleman's arrest. The lead officer looked uncomfortable as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Sir, you need to come with us. Shadow's monitor started alarming again. His breathing stopped completely.
Dr. Wells's hands moved across Shadow's chest.
Compressions. 1, 2, 3. The dog's ribs bent under the pressure like twigs about to snap. Monica grabbed the breathing bag, one of those rubber things that looks like a small football, and positioned it over Shadow's muzzle. Her hands shook like leaves in a storm. Sir, you need to come now. The officer's hand touched Richard's shoulder, gentle but firm. Badge read Martinez, same last name as the young fellow who'd found Shadow, though this one was older, grayer, been doing this job since Reagan probably. Richard didn't move. His fingers stayed on Shadow's paw. The dog's eyes were half open, pupils fixed and dilated like black marbles. No response to the overhead lights. Nothing. 2 minutes down.
Dr. Wells switched positions with a younger technician who took over compressions, counting under her breath in Spanish, the language that half of Miami speaks at home. Patricia Patterson pushed forward, her face eager as a child at Christmas. See what he's done? Tortured this poor animal to death. I want that in the arrest report, Officer Martinez. The officer, and now I could see the family resemblance to young James Martinez, looked at the flat-lined monitor.
Ma'am, step back.
That's my dog dying because of him.
Step back. Richard's thumb found the soft spot on Shadow's paw where the fur was thinnest, where you could feel the pulse when there was one. Still warm. Emily's hand had stayed warm for an hour after her heart stopped. The nurses said it didn't mean anything, just biology, but Richard had held on anyway. Epinephrine. Dr. Wells pushed the drug into Shadow's IV, the syringe emptying fast. Come on, you fought this hard. The monitor stayed flat, 3 minutes without oxygen. At 4 minutes, brain death begins. Richard knew the numbers by heart, had memorized them during Emily's treatment,
as if knowing the enemy would help defeat it. Monica's face was wet. When had she started crying? She squeezed the breathing bag in rhythm with the compressions. Her wedding ring, she still wore it, even after the divorce, caught the fluorescent lights with each squeeze. "Sir," Officer Martinez again, patient as a saint. "I have to arrest you, but—" He looked at Shadow, at the chest compressions that seemed more like violence than medicine. "2 more minutes, then we go." Patricia's lawyer Burke arrived, out of breath, tie crooked. "Officers, my client wants Mr. Coleman arrested immediately for—" A beep. Single, like a doorbell in an empty house. Another beep. Shadow's chest rose on its own, shallow, rattling like paper in wind, but independent. "We got him back." Dr. Wells checked his pupils with her penlight. Responsive, sluggish but responsive. Shadow's eyes moved, found Richard. His tail didn't move, couldn't move with all the drugs in his system, but his front paw pressed against Richard's hand, weak as a newborn kitten's touch. "He's too unstable to continue dialysis." Dr. Wells studied the monitors like they were scripture. "His kidneys are at maybe 15% function. We can maintain him with medications, special diet, subcutaneous fluids twice daily. But Mr. Coleman, the next crisis will kill him. His body has nothing left." Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Sir, time's up." Richard stood. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Shadow's eyes tracked him, pupils struggling to focus through the sedation. The dog's damaged throat produced a rasp of air, trying to bark, to call out, to say something only Richard would understand. "Can he come home?" Dr. Wells nodded slowly. "Tomorrow, if he survives tonight." Patricia smiled, showing that gold crown that caught the light wrong. "He won't be going to your home, Mr. Coleman. I'll be taking custody once you're in jail, where you belong." Monica moved between them fast as thought. "Over my dead body. You have no standing. I'm Shadow's emergency medical proxy." Monica pulled out her phone, showed a document on the screen. "Richard filed it yesterday. If he's incapacitated, I make all medical decisions for Shadow." Richard didn't remember filing that. The days had blurred together like watercolors in rain. But there it was, his signature at the bottom. Officer Martinez touched Richard's elbow. Professional, but not unkind. "Sir, please." Richard leaned down to Shadow. The dog's eye followed him, still aware under all the drugs and dying, still present. "I'll be back." Shadow's front paw moved against the table. 3 small movements, their signal. "Yes, I know. I'll wait. I've been waiting in basements and darkness. I can wait a little longer." The handcuffs were cold. Martinez used the front cuff position, the kind they use for white-collar folks who aren't going to run or fight. They walked past the news crews outside, questions flying like mosquitoes in August. "Mr. Coleman, why did you steal the dog? Is this about your daughter? Are you having a breakdown? Do you think money makes you above the law?" The patrol car smelled like coffee and disinfectant and that pine tree air freshener they all seem to use. Martinez drove while his partner, young woman named Chen, filled out paperwork on one of those computer tablets. "My cousin found a dog once," Martinez said quietly, watching Richard in the rearview mirror. "Tied to a tree in Homestead, left to die in the sun. Spent his whole savings trying to save it. His wife almost left him over it. Dog lived 12 more years. Died last month. My cousin still tears up talking about him." The booking process took 3 hours. Fingerprints, the ink still gets under your nails the same way it did 50 years ago. Photos, front and side, holding that little board with numbers. The holding cell had 2 other occupants, a drunk snoring in the corner and a young man coming down from something, scratching at invisible bugs under his skin. Richard's phone had been confiscated, but the wall clock, old-fashioned with Roman numerals, showed 3:47 a.m. The exact time Emily died. The exact time his mother passed. The exact time Shadow coded. The young man stopped scratching, stared at Richard through bloodshot eyes. "You're the dog guy. From the news. The crazy rich man who paid all that money for a dying dog. Richard said nothing. My grandmother had a dog, Blackie, little mutt she found behind the grocery store. Lived to be 20. When he died, she stopped eating, stopped getting out of bed. Died 2 weeks later. The man went back to scratching. Everyone thought she was crazy, dying of grief over a dog. But I get it now. Sometimes the dog is all that's keeping you here. At 5 a.m., a guard appeared. Coleman, you made bail. Richard hadn't called anyone. The guard led him to processing. Monica stood at the desk signing papers. Behind her, Marcus Washington waited in his wheelchair. Shadow's empty custom wheelchair folded beside him. How? I put up the house. Monica handed him his belongings, wallet, phone, keys to a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Our house, the one I got in the divorce, $8 million bail bond. That's everything you have. Shadow's stable, barely. Monica's keys jangled in her hand, the same keychain from when they were married. Little silver heart Emily had given her for Mother's Day. Patricia's there with animal control, trying to take him. They won't let her while he's critical, but the second he's stable enough to move, she'll grab him. Richard's phone, finally returned, showed 43 missed calls. Unknown numbers mostly. Then a text from Dr. Wells. Shadow conscious, refusing food, waiting. Marcus wheeled forward. I've been working his front legs while he's sedated. There's improvement. Minor, but real. If he survives this kidney thing, he might get 45% function in front limbs, maybe enough to feed himself. If. He's fought this hard. He's not stopping now. Marcus's voice had that certainty of someone who'd been where Shadow was. But Mr. Coleman, there's something else. Patricia's not alone. She's got people with her. Protesters. Animal rights folks who think you're torturing Shadow, and others who think you're wasting money that could help humans. It's getting ugly. The drive to the hospital took 8 minutes. Dawn was breaking over Biscayne Bay, painting the water pink and gold like those postcards they sell to tourists. Normal people starting normal Saturdays. Walking dogs that could walk. Reading papers over coffee. Living lives that made sense. Dr. Wells met them at the entrance, her face tight with worry. There's a problem. A big problem. She led them to Shadow's room. The dog lay still, IVs running into both front legs now. A catheter drained bloody urine into a bag that hung from the table. His eyes were open but unfocused, like he was looking at something nobody else could see. Patricia stood beside him with 2 animal control officers. One was a woman about my age who'd probably seen every kind of cruelty humans could invent. She was studying Shadow with eyes that had stopped hoping years ago. What's the problem? Richard moved toward Shadow. This. Dr. Wells held up new blood test results. His creatinine jumped to 12 overnight. His kidneys aren't recovering. They're dying completely. Shadow's head turned slightly toward Richard's voice. His front paw moved barely an inch, like an old man reaching for something just out of memory's reach. We need to consider. Dr. Wells stopped, started again. Mr. Coleman, he's suffering. The toxins building up in his blood are causing confusion, probably hallucinations. His blood pressure keeps dropping despite medications. We're running out of options. Patricia stepped forward with practiced grief. This is abuse. Keeping him alive like this. Officers, I want this documented for the trial. The animal control officer, name tag reading Thompson, studied Shadow. Is the dog in pain? Yes, Dr. Wells admitted. Significant pain. We're managing it, but then it needs to end. Officer Thompson's voice was gentle but firm as bedrock. Mr. Coleman, I've seen too many animals suffer because owners couldn't let go. Shadow made a sound, not quite a whimper. His damaged vocal cords could barely manage whispers of noise, but directed at Richard, deliberate as a letter. Richard knelt beside him. Shadow's eye tracked to his face. Pupil dilated, contracted, dilated. but aware. Still in there, trapped in a failing body. "He's saying goodbye," Patricia said, her voice pitched for sympathy she'd never felt. "Let him go peacefully." Shadow's paw pressed against Richard's hand. Once, twice. On the third press, his breathing changed. Faster, shallower, like he was running out of time. Dr. Wells held out the syringe. Pink liquid, the same color as the sunrise outside. The same color as the foam Shadow had coughed during his seizure. "It's peaceful. He'll just go to sleep." Shadow's eyes found Richard's. Still brown, still watching, still waiting for someone to decide if he was worth saving.
Then Emma Thompson, the teenager from the park incident, ran in holding her phone up like a torch. "Don't you dare kill him!" She was breathing hard from running. "I've been live streaming this whole thing on that TikTok all you kids use. 50,000 people watching right now. They all saw what really happened to Shadow." Emma's phone screen glowed bright in the dim hospital room. Comments scrolled past faster than reading, little messages popping up and disappearing like fireflies. Her wrestling team jacket was soaked with rain from running, dripping on the linoleum floor that hadn't been updated since the 70s. 50,000 people just watched you try to manipulate this whole situation. Emma positioned herself between Shadow and Patricia, solid as a linebacker despite being 16. "They heard you admit to knowing Shadow was in that basement. Every word." Patricia's face drained white as fresh bedsheets. "That's taken out of context. 3 hours of footage." Emma's voice stayed steady as a news anchor's. "You arriving here at 4 a.m. to wait for him to die, calling your lawyer to prepare ownership papers while Shadow was coding, laughing with the security guard about the rich fool who paid for a broken dog." Shadow's breathing grew more labored. Each inhale sounded wet, like breathing through a soaked towel. Dr. Wells moved toward him with the intubation equipment, that plastic tube they put down throats when lungs give up. "We need to decide now. Intubate or intubate?" Richard's voice cut through like a blade. "Whatever it takes." The animal control officer, Thompson, stepped forward. "Mr. Coleman, I have to ask, are you prolonging suffering because you can't accept reality?" Emma turned her phone toward the officer. "Ask them." The screen showed comments flying past in languages I couldn't read. Someone had started a donation button. $30,000 in 12 minutes. People sharing stories about their own broken dogs, their own impossible choices. A veterinary surgeon in Seattle offering to fly down. Some doctor in Japan typing about alternative treatments. Shadow's eyes tracked the movement around him, pupils wide as nickels from the drugs. His front paw kept pressing against Richard's hand, rhythmic, like he was tapping out Morse code, like he was saying, "Still here, still here, still here." Dr. Wells slid the tube down Shadow's throat. The dog didn't fight it, couldn't fight it. The ventilator took over, his chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. Patricia's lawyer Burke arrived, pushing through the growing crowd in the hallway. "This is a circus. My client demands—" "Your client is about to be arrested." Monica held up her phone, showing something on that screen. "The DEA just confirmed Patricia Patterson is being investigated for conspiracy to distribute. 3 of Derek's dealers named her as a middleman." She didn't just enable Derek's addiction, she profited from it. Patricia backed toward the door. The animal control officers blocked her path without seeming to move. "You don't understand." Patricia's voice cracked like old leather. "Derek was impossible. Violent when he was sober, unconscious when he was high. The dog was the only thing that calmed him down. But then Derek got paranoid. Said the dog was recording him for the FBI. CIA. Crazy talk from the meth. He locked Shadow up, and suddenly there was peace. I could manage Derek better without the dog interfering." Emma kept recording. The viewer count hit 70,000. "So you left Shadow to die?" "I brought food sometimes. Water. When Derek was passed out." Patricia's hands shook like leaves in wind.
But if Derek found out I'd freed the dog, he would have killed me. He was my son, but the drugs made him something else. A monster. My baby became a monster. Shadow's ventilator wheezed. His eyes had closed, but the monitors showed brain activity. Still aware, somewhere in there. Marcus wheeled forward. I've seen this before. The body shuts down to heal. Coma, basically. But Shadow's different. He's waiting for something. Waiting to die, Patricia said. No. Marcus positioned his hands on Shadow's front legs, began the range of motion exercises he'd been doing every day. Feel this. Even unconscious, there's muscle response. His body wants to work. It's waiting for permission. Shadow's paw twitched, barely visible, like a pulse under skin. Emma's phone rang. She answered on speaker. This is Dr. Yamamoto from Tokyo Veterinary University. I'm watching your stream. That dog needs peritoneal dialysis, less stress than hemodialysis. I can walk your veterinarian through it right now.
Dr. Wells leaned toward the phone. The infection risk, lower than letting him die. I've done this procedure on 12 dogs with similar kidney values. 8 survived. Richard's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, then saw the preview. Derek's journal. You need to read this. The message was from Rosa Gutierrez, the neighbor who'd called the police. Attached were photos of handwritten pages, Derek's writing getting worse as the pages went on. Day 743. King won't stop looking at me, like he knows what I've become. I changed his name to Shadow because that's all he is now. A shadow in the basement. Like me. We're both shadows. Day 890. Mom came today. Brought more pills. Says it's medicine, but I know it's poison. Shadow tried to protect me. Bit her hand. I had to punish him. Hit him with the pipe until he stopped moving. Thought I killed him. He lived. He always lives. Stronger than me. Richard kept reading, the words blurring through water in his eyes. Day 1095. I'm going to die tonight. I can feel it, like something inside is shutting off. Shadow is quiet downstairs. I should free him, but I can't move. Mom was here yesterday, took my disability check. Didn't go downstairs. If someone finds this, Shadow didn't deserve this. He was a good dog. I was a bad human. Tell him I'm sorry. Rosa's voice came through the phone. He died that night. I found the journal when I cleaned out the house for the landlord. Thought you should know. Derek loved that dog. The drugs stole that love, twisted it into something else, but it was there. Shadow's ventilator alarmed. His blood pressure was dropping again, 70-40, 60-35. Numbers that meant the body was giving up. He's crashing again. Dr. Wells prepared medications, hands moving with practiced urgency. Mr. Coleman, we're running out of options. His body can't take much more. Patricia collapsed into a chair. Derek tried to get clean once. For Shadow. 3 days sober, shaking like he had fever. Then I brought him pills because I needed the money for rent. He never tried again. Emma's live stream showed 90,000 viewers, comments in dozens of languages, prayers, advice, anger, hope, money pouring into the donation link. Then a small voice from the doorway. Is the doggy dying? Timothy, Dr. Jennifer Reeves's son, sat in his wheelchair. His mother stood behind him, both soaked from the rain that had started outside. We saw the stream. Timothy insisted on coming. The boy wheeled himself to Shadow's bed, his twisted spine making it hard to reach up. His fingers found Shadow's paw. I was asleep for 2 months after my accident. Everyone said I was gone, but I heard them, every word, every prayer, every time they said goodbye. Timothy looked at Richard with eyes too old for his age. I was waiting to know if I should stay or go. Shadow's paw moved, just a twitch under Timothy's fingers. He's waiting for you to tell him. Richard's hand found Shadow's chest. Through the fur, beneath the ribs that showed like piano keys, the heart still beat. Weak, irregular, but beating. "Stay." The word came out cracked as old paint. Richard pressed his forehead against Shadow's side, feeling the ventilator push air in and out. "Stay with me." Shadow's ventilator wheezed. Timothy's small hand remained on Shadow's paw. The boy whispered something Richard couldn't hear. Maybe a prayer, maybe just a child talking to a dog, the way children do. Shadow's tail moved. Not quite a wag, more like a tremor, but voluntary. Dr. Wells checked the monitor. "Blood pressure stabilizing, 80/50. Emma's phone showed 120,000 viewers. Someone had started a fundraiser for Timothy's medical bills, $30,000 in 12 minutes.
Comments flying past in languages from around the world, Japanese, Spanish, French, Russian, all saying versions of the same thing. Save him. Dr. Yamamoto's voice came through the speaker, clear as Sunday church bells. "Start the peritoneal dialysis now. I'll guide you through every step." 1 year later. The Fontainebleau ballroom sparkled with those chandeliers that cost more than my Herald made in 5 years. Richard stood at the podium, Shadow beside him in his wheelchair, the fourth version Marcus had designed, titanium frame with shock absorbers that actually worked. 50 million raised, 5,000 animals treated, 100 permanently paralyzed animals in our sanctuary. Shadow's breathing was audible through the microphone. His lungs never fully recovered. Each breath still took effort. His kidneys functioned at 20% on good days, 15 on bad ones. The wheelchair supported everything from his middle back down. But his eyes tracked the crowd, alert as a security guard. Monica took the microphone. She wore purple, Emily's favorite color. "I accused Richard of replacing our daughter with this dog." Her hand touched Shadow's head, gentle as blessing bread. "I was wrong. Shadow didn't replace Emily. He honored what she believed. That love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up." Shadow's tail moved against the wheelchair. 3 taps. Their signal. Marcus rolled up the ramp with 12 other wheelchairs behind him. Dogs, cats, even a rabbit. All paralyzed. All alive because Shadow's story had changed what people thought possible. "Shadow's ward is full. We need to build another wing." Shadow moved then. His front right paw pushed against the wheelchair control, the joystick Marcus had built specially for him. The wheelchair rolled forward. 1 inch. 2. Shadow's tongue hung out from the effort, but he kept pushing. He stopped at the podium's edge. His damaged vocal cords managed their broken sound. Not a bark. Never a bark again. But deliberate. Director at the audience. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Sunset, Miami Beach. Richard lifted Shadow from the van. The dog weighed 45 pounds now, up from 30, but still thin as paper. The wheelchair's wheels dug into sand. Emma Thompson and 5 other teenagers from her wrestling team were already there. They'd become Shadow's regular volunteers. Timothy was there too, comparing wheelchairs with Shadow while his mother read nearby. Shadow faced the ocean. His nose lifted, nostrils working at the salt air. His front paws had 40% function now, enough to control his wheelchair, enough to eat independently, not enough to support his body weight. Never enough for that. The water touched the wheelchair wheels. Shadow's breathing quickened. His tail moved against the seat. The sound from his throat was pure contentment. 1 year ago, you were dying in a basement. Richard knelt beside him in the sand. "Look at you now." Shadow's head turned. Those brown eyes, clouded with beginning cataracts, found Richard's face. His front paw lifted, pressed against Richard's chest, right over his heart. Richard's phone buzzed. Patricia Patterson's number. She was in federal prison, 18 months for drug distribution. He'd been putting money in her commissary account, enough for coffee and stamps to write letters nobody answered. The message was short. "Thank you for saving him. Derek would thank you too. Shadow made his broken sound again, directed at the ocean, at the teenagers building sandcastles, at Timothy beside him, at the world he'd almost left, not healed. His spine still curved wrong, his kidneys barely worked. Every day required medications, catheters, careful watching. But here, the sun touched the horizon. Shadow's eyes closed, not in death, but in peace.
Richard's hand found the spot between his ears where the fur grew softest.
Was it worth it? Monica asked. She'd started coming to these beach visits, not reconciliation, just presence. Shadow's tail tapped 3 times. Yes, yes, yes. Connecting hearts, friend. I need to tell you something before we part. When I first heard about Richard and Shadow, I thought it was just another story about a rich man's folly. But sitting in that courtroom, watching a broken dog try to stand for the man who saved him, I understood. We're all Shadow in some way. Broken parts we hide, waiting in our own basements for someone to say we're worth saving. Richard wasn't saving a dog. He was proving that love isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about staying present with the broken pieces. Shadow's still paralyzed, still struggles, but he's loved.
Maybe that's all any of us really need. Someone who stays when leaving would be easier. Disclaimer. This story was inspired by true events but has been adapted for entertainment purposes. All names, characters, and specific events have been fictionalized. This narrative does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of animal cruelty, neglect, or harmful behavior. Animal abuse is a serious crime. If you suspect animal abuse, please contact local authorities immediately. The medical conditions and treatments described are simplified for narrative purposes and should not be considered veterinary advice. All characters and events in this story are products of creative interpretation. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is coincidental.